Welcome to She Said Homestead, the podcast that explores homesteading from a range of perspectives. We're Sage and Mickayla, two homesteaders, each with unique experiences, properties, and future goals for our homesteads. We're discussing various homesteading topics, sharing our personal experiences as women working full-time who are managing homesteads as well, and shining a light on the stories of other inspiring homesteaders.
Before we dive in, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoy our podcast, please consider leaving a review. It really helps us grow and share these homesteading stories with even more people.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I am Sage from Terra Nova Acres.
And I'm Mickayla from Calico Cow Acres, and we both have homesteads in Western North Carolina.
Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about our favorite varieties and where we get our seeds from.
But before we get into that, you want to tell me what you did this week?
Yeah, this week I have laid pretty low, I'm not going to lie. Partly because I am still kind of healing from a foot injury when I stepped on a nail. And partly because it's just winter, and I think it's part of my natural rhythm to just sort of hide from the world and not attempt to be too productive. But I have done a couple things in the kitchen. I did get milk from the store, and based on what we talked about in our last episode, I did try to turn it into cheese. It turned into cheese. It didn't turn into the cheese that I wanted it to turn into. So, like, half credit.
Interesting. What, brand did you get?
I got just the Publix brand generic, I think Greenwise. Their organic whole milk, which is homogenized and ultra pasteurized, but that's what I could get, and I kind of just wanted to see what would happen.
So what cheese were you trying to make, and what did you get?
I was attempting to make fresh mozzarella.
Okay.
And I had a pretty good idea going into it that it was not going to work, but I still wanted to try. And I made a really beautiful creamy ricotta out of it, but then I pushed my luck. I strained it extra, I made it drier, and tried to heat it up to see if I could get the curds to maybe melt together and potentially stretch them together, and that didn't happen. So then I just put it in a couple ramekins and made farmer cheese, basically.
I mean, that sounds delicious still, to be fair.
Yeah, it's still delicious, and I had some on my dinner tonight. It's great. It's just not that beautiful fresh mozzarella I was really hoping for.
Gotcha. I feel like now I need to retry making fresh mozzarella with plain milk, from the store, and see if it works. Just because it's been a few years since I've done it. Now I'm concerned that I told you that, and now all of the milk is different.
Well, what I read was that you can order, I forget what the exact name of it is, but it's a particular form of calcium that you can add back to the milk, that through the processes that it goes through to get ready to, be on the shelf at the store, that gets taken out of it. So you can add it back to the milk and, in theory, make cheese out of store-bought milk if you can add that component back into it. What about you? What did you get up to this week?
So Taylor came home Friday night, and we just had a chill movie night. Finally, having him home after how horrendous of a week I had last week was so nice. And we just watched movies and laid on the couch and had snacks. And then we made pasta and all the things with eggs all weekend. We went through 13 dozen eggs. 13 dozen.
That's a lot of eggs. So what all did you make with it? I'm sure some pasta, and then what else?
So I'm not completely done making the pasta. I still have pasta in the fridge that I need to make into raviolis, and then whatever, the plan is to make raviolis until I run out of the fillings we made. We made spinach ricotta. I made a beef ricotta, so I can have my own Chef Boyardee. And mushroom something, and then a 4 cheese. So once those are gone, I'm just going to make fettuccine and make little nests to freeze. But so I have a bunch of that to do still. But the other primary thing that we made was breakfast sandwiches for the freezer. So I made homemade English muffins. I made 4 dozen of them. And we froze just 2 dozen plain to open up whenever we want a snack for breakfast or whatever. And then we made 2 dozen breakfast sandwiches with just eggs. I think Taylor put cheese and some sort of breakfast meat on those ones. I made biscuits. We did a dozen sandwiches with those, and then we bought bagels because they were like buy one get one free, and I didn't feel like making bagels as well as all the other things. So we did a dozen of those too as breakfast sandwiches. So we have like 50 breakfast sandwiches in the freezer downstairs now, which is great because Taylor loves breakfast sandwiches. Like it's a perfect snack for him, or like to bring whenever I just don't have time to make like meal prep for the week. Very happy about that. We went through a lot of eggs for that, and I also water glassed like a gallon and a half of them. So,
How many fit in that gallon and a half jar?
you know, I wish I would have counted. I've been wishing all week that I
Kudos.
counted, and I didn't. So I'm like, I want to know how many I put in there. I feel like it's got to be more than 2 dozen, but I'm not really sure. Like,
Are
it's a
the
big
eggs that you're getting from the chickens still pretty small? Like I know when they first start laying, they're kind of miniature eggs.
It depends on the breed. Most of our eggs are normal, like store-bought egg size, I would say. We only ever really got a few small ones from the ones that are laying those big ones now. Some of them are like elongated, but that's our Americanas, and I think that might just be how they lay because they've always been like that. Like they've been consistent. And then we've been getting teeny tiny eggs from I think they're New Hampshires. I always forget. They're not Rhode Island, so they're New Hampshires. I always want to say Rhode Island. They lay like tiny little like creamsicle colored eggs, and they've all been small, so I don't know if those are going to get any bigger, but we'll see. They're tiny birds, so it makes sense. For the most part, they've been pretty big, like all of our eggs in general. We haven't really had any wonky ones.
Of the new birds that I got this year, my Morans are the only ones that are laying normal size eggs. Everyone else is laying still very tiny eggs. And for how old they are, they really should have all started laying now. I think I got them right on the precipice of like where I would have needed to get them a little bit earlier for them to solidly start laying before winter hit. So I think
Mhm.
most of them will really hit their stride with egg laying or even start egg laying in the spring. I think
When
that's
did
what
you
happened with the ones I got this year.
when did you get them?
I can never remember.
Was it
It
like summer or
was
spring?
it was late May or early June. It was slightly after I got my egg layers the year previous, 2022.
I got ours like July or June 19th ish, and they all started laying over December pretty much. I think everybody's laying now. I'm not 100% sure. It's hard to tell. We get like 8 eggs a day, I would say, roughly now. From the chickens, we get 3 to 4 a day from the ducks, which there's 4 of them that lay. I think our biggest eggs come from our Bielefelders at this point. Our Morans and our Bielefelders have big eggs. We got a really massive one yesterday, and I think it might be like a double yolk one. It's really weird shaped. We'll
Yeah,
see.
the Red Rangers, the 2 Red Ranger hens that I kept from my meat bird batch, my first ones, every single egg that they lay is massive, and every single one is a double yolker.
That's so interesting. I wonder, are you ever going to try and hatch those ones, do you think? Just for fun?
Because they're double yolks, I don't think so. Because the chicks would be, probably weak and have some issues, and I don't necessarily know if that's humane.
That's fair. I wonder, like, were you planning to hatch them out if they were single yolk? I mean, not knowing that they were double yolk, you know what I mean? Like, were you planning to
Yeah,
hatch
that
them?
was kind of the intention. And I initially kept a rooster as well, but then I ended up with way too many roosters, and then hens were losing feathers and chickens were getting hurt, and I was like, all right, this is chaos. I can't have this. So the Red Ranger rooster is no longer.
Nice.
He lived a good life though.
Um, Speaking of the roosters, Taylor is going to start building our frat house this week. So that's another thing. We're insulating the basement right now. We just put a bunch of window plastic up on as many windows as possible last night. And then we stocked up on all of the straw and some feed for the chickens, which felt really good because it's been like we've had to run to the store every week. Last weekend he was gone, I ran out of chicken feed and I don't have a vehicle to go get it. So that was fun. I had to feed them treats for a day. They didn't really mind that, but
I was gonna say.
yeah, that's what we did this week. Just chill, getting things done at home week. All right, you guys are going to get another disclaimer in this video / recording because Taylor is downstairs, like I said, working on insulation and he's hammering things. So if you hear hammering or basement noises or a duck, because we also have a duck in our basement, I apologize. But again, that's just homestead life.
Yeah, that's how it goes. You're always doing something, always working on something.
Well, Taylor is, and then I'm up here recording a podcast.
You're working on something. Come on now.
Oh, that's fair. Speaking of things happening in our basement, we are going to be setting up our seed starting station. Finally, I feel like I've said that the last 3 weeks probably. I still haven't started any seeds, like 2 weeks behind. It's fine. It'll get done. But we're going to be setting that up probably tomorrow night. The plan was to do that tonight, and I forgot I had to record a podcast.
Sorry to derail you.
But that's okay because we're talking about seeds today. So first we're going to start with our favorite places to get seeds. And we have a whole list of them and kind of the reasons why we like these places.
Right. So you tend to have a more varied seed source selection. And I pretty much get all of my seeds from either Johnny's or Baker Creek. I will also pick up the occasional botanical interest seed if they're on sale or if I just see something that I want to try while I'm at a hardware store like Ace or while I'm at the plant nursery. And that's typically what's commonly stocked in the stores around me, at least. So those are my main three. I know that you have a couple other sources that are local and small business owned and that you like to order from there.
So I'm like huge with experimentation in the garden. I'm still trying to figure out where I like to buy seeds from the most. So I've been having like a broad range of where I buy them, and I'm like slowly honing in on like where I want to buy in the future based on performance, varieties, just like the company in general, and going more local as I go is going to be like my direction. I want to try and get seeds that are more regionally adapted, but I do love a few of these companies a lot. So
probably the biggest company on our list is Johnny's Seeds. And from Johnny's, I mean, they not only have seeds, but they have tools and all kinds of stuff. But I really appreciate them as a source for flower seeds and for anything that I need to buy more in bulk. So, for example, my wheat seeds, they have options to get like a 1 pound bag, a 5 pound bag, a 20-pound bag, and I think they even have something bigger than that. So they can be a really good source for people like homesteaders who are kind of in between being a home gardener and being a production grower. Like it's for most of us, it's not a business, but also we're growing a lot more than somebody who might have, like a tiny little bed. So for me personally, and for people who have, quarter-acre gardens, they have some things that most companies just don't at cost-effective rates.
Yeah, so I ordered from Johnny's for the first time this year, actually. I've never ordered from them before, mostly because I'm the kind of person who, like, if there's not free shipping, I won't order from it because I hate paying for shipping. So, like, I'd rather order more seeds from somewhere else and not have to pay shipping. But that's just my cheap mentality. But I will say, I am excited for the seeds that I got from them this year. I got sunflower seeds because Sage influenced me. And I got edamame from them because, like you said, they have them in larger quantities. And I didn't want to buy like 8 packages from somewhere else to get the amount of edamame seeds that I wanted. And then I also ordered some hybrid seeds from them this year for the tomatoes and peppers that I'm going to try as an experiment, because that's like one of the only places that I like would trust to get them at, I guess.
They have a huge selection of vegetables and flowers and other various, grains and farm seeds. Like if you go through their website, it takes a while. It's kind of mind-blowing how much they have. And whereas something like Baker Creek only has heirlooms, Johnny's has heirlooms and hybrid and open pollinated, and they're good about telling you what it is as well.
Yeah, I also feel like Johnny's is kind of underrated for the amount of information that they give you, like growing information. They have such good resources on there. Even though I haven't bought seeds from them in previous years, I always reference their website for like how to grow things, because they have like paragraphs of information on there for each thing, which is really cool.
They do, and they're good about putting a lot of information on the back of their seed packets as well. I'm sure it's not as much as is available on the webpage for each thing, and sometimes it is kind of annoying to me to go, okay, what is this seed? Okay, I have to like go look this up. But I'm glad that the information is available, because that's much better than trying to Google it from random sources and trying to figure it out.
I will say, it's gonna sound silly, but this ties into my whole seed, my seed favorites as well for the aesthetics of things. I hate that they don't have pictures on their seed packets. It makes me sad. They're not as fun to look at, and they make me less excited. But I understand at the same time.
Yeah, I get why they don't. If I had a seed company, there is no way that I would pay all the extra money and take all the extra time to put that on there, but I totally get it.
I mean, I probably would, not gonna lie, but they also have so many options that like I understand, and it's also more of like a commercial based, like it's not all the heirlooms and everything. Like they're not growing things for like the aesthetic as much, I would say, as other companies. So I
Yeah.
get it. It does make me a little sad, especially trying to do like seed hauls. I'm like, okay, but I want to show people like a pretty picture.
I got that feedback a lot on my most recent seed haul, and part of the reason that I didn't go find pictures and edit them into the video is that would have taken forever to go find the pictures, save them, and then add them to the video. Hours. Would have been hours of my time, and I just wasn't going to do that. And then two, I don't own the rights to the pictures. And no, they probably wouldn't have gotten on me. Like, that's kind of a big commercial for them, right? Like,
Yeah.
it probably wouldn't come back to bite me, but the fact that it could, it's just like,
Honestly,
those aren't my pictures. I don't have the right to use them.
Taylor and I were just talking about this earlier. I have all of the seeds. I haven't done my seed haul yet. I meant to film it today, but I was working on my resume, so I didn't. But I think I might actually just go on their site, and if they have like a picture of the seed packet, I might screenshot it and put it in the video, simply because I already sorted out all of my seeds into their containers, and it would probably take me more time to unsort them and then have to put them all back. And I have my receipts emails from the companies that I ordered from, so like it would be easier to just list them off and then not have to like hold it up to the screen and try and get it to, or to the camera and get it to focus. So I might do that and just see how it goes, but we'll see. I might also just pull them out and take pictures of the seed packets that I have and then put those pictures in the video so that I don't have to focus the camera for every single one.
Yeah, that's fair. The other main source that I use for my seeds is Baker Creek, and I like them for a couple reasons. One, they have free shipping on orders over some super low minimum, like 30, I think.
I think it's like
And
$12.
okay, yeah, maybe it's even that low.
I'm pretty sure it's $12, and then, or 12 packets. I don't remember. I think it's $12 though. And you get, like, for every amount you get another free seed packet too. So it's not just one free.
Exactly. Yeah. Free shipping and free extra seeds. That's really awesome. But another one of the main reasons that I like them is because they sell exclusively heirloom seed. I don't have to click into something and figure out, is this heirloom? Can I save the seed from it? What are the considerations? Like, I enjoy growing heirloom stuff pretty exclusively so that I can save the seeds from it when I get my stuff together enough to do that. And so that I'm not constantly having to buy new supply of seed every single year for every single thing. At least
Yeah.
for my food. For flowers, I don't really care, but food, that's a big one for me.
So I have a lot of Baker Creek seeds as well. And one, let me say, beautiful website, beautiful seed packets. I love their seed packets. They're beautiful. I do wish they had more information on them. They don't have as much as Johnny's does, which, again, understandable because they have the pretty picture. I don't know if it's because I had old seed packs this past year, but I had a lot of trouble with a variety of things for germination. This past year, a lot of my garden was me trying to use up old seeds. So it's very possible that that's just me moving 4 times in the last couple of years and the seeds coming with me and not always being in ideal environments.
I have heard that critique about Baker Creek before, but I mean, I think almost every single one of my vegetable seeds that I have in my collection is Baker Creek. And except for like maybe 1 or 2, I've never had issues with germination rate. So I don't know if I've just gotten lucky or what's going on. I've definitely noticed older seeds go bad on particular varieties, and I've definitely gotten maybe 1 or 2 new seed packets that just didn't do anything, but that's no worse of a germination rate for me than any other seed company.
Yeah, I think the things that I had the hardest time with were the tomato seeds did not germinate very well for me at all, and that was multiple varieties.
That's so interesting because I think almost all of my tomato seeds now are multiple years old, like 3 or 4. And every year I'm like, "Oh no, is this the year that I'm not going to be able to germinate them?" And every year I'm like, "Oh shoot, I started too many. I hedged my bets too much. Now I have too many."
Mine were 2020 seeds, so 3 years.
Mm,
So
yeah.
who knows?
Who
I had
knows?
a tough year with some seeds anyway, so it could have been me as well.
And then Baker Creek also has some weird varieties that you probably can't find very commonly. I know that there are things that I've seen on their website and that I love to grow that I've absolutely never come across anywhere else, including Johnny's, despite, how many seeds they have.
Yeah, I love just going to their website and looking through it. Just there's things on there that I'm like, I didn't even know this existed. They're beautiful and they do have a lot of really, really interesting stuff. So I will give them that. Honestly, like the only other negative about them, I would say, and it's really something I shouldn't complain about because it's literally the free seeds, but I feel like when they give you free seeds, they give you the same ones over and over and over. And I can't in my lifetime imagine myself eating that much wasabi radish. It's just like that's what I get every time. And Mizuna. It's just too much. So I wish there was like a little bit more variety with the free stuff, but again, that's not something that I can really complain about because it's free. So
I kind of wonder if when they do that, they look at what else is in your order and try to give you something similar, because I've gotten several of the same ones over and over, but I can't think of a single time that I've gotten wasabi radish. But
I have like
I
10.
have probably 3 or 4 packets of this like dill pepper that's super, super hot and that I'm absolutely never going to grow. I just always give it away.
I have 2 packets of that.
Mm.
I have 2 detail pepper. I have like probably 10 wasabi radish and so much Mizuna. That's like the only ones I've gotten over the last few years ordering from them. I guess maybe I've gotten some carrots too, actually, now that I think of it. Like,
The Uzbek, the yellow one.
no, it's Saint Valerie's, I think.
I would take some free St. Valerie carrot.
I mean, I bought them and they gave them to me in the same order. So maybe you're right.
Hmm.
I'm not complaining about those. I have so many carrot seeds and I will take all of the carrot seeds.
Yeah, and even if it's something that you're not going to use, you can always trade it or give it away or whatever.
I figure I'll try growing some of them and then if I don't like them, then I'll just feed them to my birds, depending on what it is.
There you go.
My birds love radish greens, so I just give them to them.
Just don't feed them nightshades and you should be okay.
All right, so those are your like main two places that you get seeds, but I have a full list. We're going to go into each of them, a couple points on them. I don't want to like go in depth on all of them, but MI Gardener is one of my absolute favorite places to get seeds. One, because I'm from Michigan and I used to live like less than an hour from their store, and I just feel like they have a lot of educational content out on the internet in general. Like they're very, very helpful to new gardeners, I think. And it's a small company. Like it's a couple and their two kids, and like they have a small shop with, you know, some employees and stuff. They have really cheap seeds. And that's why I like them more than anything. They also have really good varieties, but their seed packets are all $2, and sometimes they have less amount in them. But for a lot of things, I feel like you don't really need a bajillion seeds, depending on what it is. So it works out. Like I said, I bought edamame from Johnny's instead of MI Gardener because I needed more than 25 seeds. So like a lot of their seed packets have like 25 or 50 seeds in them. I feel like for most people that would be plenty, like depending on how much you're growing. Especially if you have like a normal garden and you're not crazy like me and Sage. MI Gardener actually reached out to us like a month or two ago and asked if we wanted to have like a discount code for them. So we're like part of their affiliate team, which is really, really cool. Yeah, so we're part of their affiliate team, and that's like one of my prized accomplishments at this point. So the next one on my list is Fruition Seeds, and I think that's also a smaller company. I don't know as much about the company in particular, but they have really good resources. They do like a lot of webinars and live videos and blog posts. They have a lot of resources for education. That's pretty much where I learned how to grow garlic. They have like a really comprehensive guide. That's one of my favorite places to order garlic from, and it's all organic. They do certified organic and all heirloom seeds as much as possible. They have beautiful seed garlic. It's like massive. And it's like one of the most affordable places I found to order seed garlic. As far as their like actual veggie seeds and flower seeds and stuff go, I haven't ordered a ton from them for those things, but they are really reasonably priced compared to most other places. I would say they're on average with them. And then I also just love what they stand for as a company in general. I feel like they have really good values that align with my values. Earlier I mentioned that I want to start trying to transition to buying more local and regionally adapted seeds. And there are a couple of companies on my list that I want to look into more and like lean into more for getting seeds from them. The first one of those is xoxo Seed, and that's in Asheville, so that's really close to you. It's about an hour from me, and they have like a physical store. I've never really lived around them, but like MI Gardener and xoxo Seed are like the only in-person seed stores I've ever come across that I can go into and like look at things. And I think that's really cool. I want to go visit their store sometime. And then also they have shipping. Like you have to pay for shipping from them, but if you're local, you can just go pick them up. So you don't have to pay for shipping and you can get them right away.
We should do a trip at some point. I don't think either one of us need any more seeds right now, but we should make a point to take a trip to that store and just geek out on seeds at some point.
I would love to do that. I think that would be so fun. I mean, I always need more seeds.
Homestead friend date. Seed shopping.
Yeah. Most people go to like Target. We go to the seed store.
Target's way more dangerous than a seed store.
I don't know.
I guess it depends.
Buy one of every seed and it probably adds up. They are open pollinated, heirloom, and organic seeds. It's an employee-owned cooperative, which I really like. That's super cool. And so obviously they don't grow all of their seeds like themselves. They source them from local farmers and local gardeners in our area in general within like a couple hours of us. So I think that's super cool, and I feel like their seeds probably have a really good chance of doing well here because they're regionally adapted. And I really want to lean into that more since we have such bad clay soil here right now. I'll take any help I can get. And then Eden Brothers is the other one. I don't know as much about this company. I have ordered a handful of things from them, onion seeds and a few other like random things. But looking at their website, they have a really, really, really good variety of flower seeds. Like they have so many flowers on their site. And one of the like my favorite things on their site is they have mixes of wildflowers that you can get, and you can choose them by state or region, or like you can separate them out into like different. They have them all separated out into different categories, and they're like different mixes of them, which is neat. And then they also have a lot of herbs, which is cool. So, and they're in Arden, North Carolina, which is basically Asheville. The next one, botanical interests. They have a good variety of options. They have absolutely gorgeous seed packets. I know this is like repetitive, me saying that, but I just really like pretty things. The art on theirs, I want to cut all of their seed packet fronts off and just like frame them. They're so pretty. The reason that I initially ordered them was when we got married, I used those as like the little party favors like to give away, and I like decorated our table with them on the plates. So that's why I ordered from them initially, because they're just so pretty, and I'm excited to try the seeds. I don't know, I don't have any frame of reference for like how well they'll do, because I've never grown their seeds before. So this coming year will be that test.
I have never ordered from them specifically. I've just always seen their seeds stocked in stores that I'm in anyway. Like the local nursery that's not that far from me, they have a whole wall of botanical interests seeds. And this is one that I have run into germination issues with. And I don't necessarily want to put that on them as a company, because it's from secondary places, right? Like the hardware store. Who knows how those seeds were stored between when, they left botanical interest and when they got into my hands, just because the staff at the stores aren't always thinking about that kind of thing. So I don't necessarily want to put that on them as a company, but it is something to think about if you're buying from like Ace Hardware or something.
For sure. I think it's interesting because I've never seen them at a store in person, but I'm sure that they obviously stock them at places. I just don't go to Ace very much. They have a lot of information on their seed packets too. So I know that Epic Gardening just took over that company this year, like this summer. They just acquired the company.
What?
Yeah.
I did not know this.
Yeah. So I don't know if that will change anything about the actual company or the seeds or anything, but that's just, if you like Epic Gardening, support them.
Okay, I did not expect that. I actually have another one to throw in here that I just thought about.
Okay.
And it's not seeds and it's not food, but it is flower bulbs. So I definitely make an order every year from Longfield Gardens, and that's where I get my dahlia bulbs. I know that you are going to talk a little bit about some dahlia seeds, but what I'm talking about are like the dahlias. They're not single row petals. They're like big dinner plate dahlia style. Yep. I have looked at other sources for dahlias before, and they're either not as cost effective or they just don't have a consistent supply of the varieties that I want. Like trying to find a cafe au lait dahlia in March or April is real hard.
I ordered some tubers last year and I can't remember. I don't know how to say it. I know what the company is. It's K, like the letter K, dot, Van Bourguignon or something. I don't know how to say it.
We can put the link down in the description. How about that?
They turned out really beautifully, though. I think I have a Cafe au lait one, and then I got a couple others, too. I think I got a purple one that's like a dusty light purple and some like pink ones, too. And they were all really, really pretty. I just got those ones because they were on sale.
And Longfield has all kinds of stuff. They have peonies, they have anemones, they have ranunculus corms. Like, they've got a ton of things. They don't sell seeds, but they do sell like tubers, corms, anything that starts from rootstock. And they have a wide selection of things, but dahlias is typically what I buy from them. I do appreciate them for, what I get for my money, but there have been a couple instances where it was a mislabeled variety, and you don't know until you grow it and it flowers and it's the wrong color. That's happened with a couple different things, but they're also good about owning up to that and figuring out a way to make it right when that does happen.
I think I might have ordered ranunculus corms from them, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know where I got my ranunculus corms from, but I did order some of those last year and they grew really well. I might look it up and maybe we'll add that to the notes too, if I can find it. I tried looking earlier and I couldn't find the email.
I have so many receipt emails from ordering different seeds and flower bulbs. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't put my hands on it.
Well, I've never like ordered anything else from that company, so I know like if I could
Fair.
type in ranunculus and it would show up, I would be able to find it, but nothing shows up. So I don't know. I knew I grew the flowers, so I got them from somewhere.
They just appeared.
And then, so the last two aren't really companies, I guess, for our favorites, but Gifted and Saved Seeds. So Gifted, we've had a few people, like YouTube subscribers that are semi-local to us, mail us seeds, and I think that's just really, really neat. They definitely started out better and overall did better than our other seed varieties. And they were like third and fourth year saved seeds. That's what they had written on the packages, the little envelopes. So I would love to like save seeds and trade with people in the future, just like locally. Have our like if I could get seeds from our neighbors, they already said that we could have all the seeds we want because they have more than they could ever possibly use. So like that kind of thing would be really cool. Just like leaning into that more local thing. And then we have a lot of homesteaders here in Western North Carolina. So we have a lot of like homestead type events and get togethers and that kind of thing that happen. And if I'm ever invited to them, or if we like start that sort of thing ourselves, or just like more meetups and the Farm Where You Live festival, that kind of thing, they usually do seed swaps. So I would love to save my own seed and like give them to people to share, do like calico cow acres varieties of things to gift to people at those. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that would be fun. I don't know if we need to start a meetup. I think we have enough on our plates, but
Well, there already are some. I just don't go to them because I am too busy.
and introverted.
That too. I do best when communicating through a computer.
Yes. When I have time to think about what to say and make it not weird.
Yeah. Or slightly less weird.
I I have managed to save a handful of seeds as I've had my first and second year gardens at this property. Not nearly as much as I planned to or hoped to, but the handful of things that I did save, I do notice that it makes a difference in how healthy the plant is, the germination rate, all that kind of stuff. I think so far it's been pepper seeds and okra seeds, marigolds, and that might be it of what no, I lied, beans too. The thing with that is, though, that I did not make sure that they weren't cross-pollinated with other heirloom varieties. So
Yeah.
some of them got a little funky and weren't exactly what I wanted. And that's part of the reason that for some of those things, I reordered it from the seed source so that I can make sure that I have true seed for that variety that I appreciate for very specific reasons. And then make an effort to put like a bloom bag or whatever over it when the flower arises, hopefully next year if I have my stuff together, which we'll see.
You're growing way, way, way more flowers and stuff too. So at least those ones
Yeah,
are like easy to save.
I'm not so worried about saving flower seeds because I have so many varieties in different colors and things that it would just be
A lot.
insane. I'm mostly focused on it for like my veggies, my food. I would love to be able to save tomato seeds and bean seeds and not have to continually reorder those things every year, even though, a seed packet is maybe $2 to $5, but you do
It
that
adds up.
30 times and it adds up.
Yeah, it does for sure. I think the seeds we've saved in the past, like during this past year and in previous years, I've only done zinnias, sunflowers, marigolds, and then loofah for the most part. I did save a little bit of tomato seeds this year, but we'll see how they do because the plants weren't the healthiest.
Yeah, you're making me remember that I did grab some zinnia seeds this year and some celosia seeds this year. I just went through like right before the first frost
Mm-hmm.
and gathered any heads. And I know that they're probably going to be not the same color that they were from the parent flower, but I'm kind of okay with that. Like sometimes you can get some really cool stuff, especially with flowers,
Yeah,
just letting them be open pollinated and do whatever they want.
I think honestly that makes me more excited to save the seeds from the flowers because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to get. And that's like, I think, and like when we talk about our favorite seeds, I'm going to talk about dahlias and the dahlia seeds. Mine this year were so freaking cool. And I'm so excited to see like what random ones I get next year. I just like the surprise.
If you're looking to save seeds or start delving into that for the first time, some really easy ones to grab at the end of your gardening season would be zinnias, sunflowers, marigolds, okra, peppers, beans, melon. All of those are pretty easy to harvest either from when you've harvested it and you're cutting it up anyway to eat it, or just at the end of the season when it's looking a little sad and dry and crispy. I know part of the reason that I ended up with so many okra seeds this year is because if it got too big to pick for food, because okra sometimes you have to pick it twice a day to get it just right, then I would just leave it. I would leave the pod on the plant until it got big and dried out. And I have more okra seeds than I could ever possibly plant now, but I'll share those. And then some other ones that you can also save, but they just take a little bit more effort, or they require you to leave the plant past its prime, past when you ordinarily would in your garden anyway. Tomatoes, the seeds are ready when you pick it off the plant, but you do kind of have to ferment the seeds. It's just an extra step to save them in a way that when you go to germinate them, the natural coating that's on there won't inhibit their germination. Squash, you can save seeds from that. You just have to leave it on the plant until the rind is hard. So, like yellow squash, you wouldn't be able to pick it when you would normally want to eat it and cut into it and save those seeds. But if you leave it until it basically becomes a pumpkin, more or less, then you could use the seeds from those. And lettuce. Lettuce is very prolific with seeds, but you have to leave it until it bolts flowers and the flowers kind of die back. But those are all relatively easy things that you can pull seeds from out of your garden if you're looking to get the benefit of that vigor from natural selection, or if you just want to cut down on your seed bill.
I would say adding to that radish. Radish is also really, it's the same as lettuce. You can eat the pods, but then once they get dried out, they are seed. Also, speaking of okra, so I wanted to try okra because I have texture issues like we've discussed many times. I don't love the texture of okra. It's like kind of slimy for me, but the reason I grew it initially is because once it gets big and dries out a little bit, it looks so pretty when you put it in bouquets. And so I grew like a red purple okra. So just a thought. I know you're growing lots of flowers. Consider growing okra to put in bouquets.
I had
It's an
never,
interesting element.
I had never thought about throwing okra in bouquets.
I think it just looks really cool. It's just like such a weird texture compared to like all the other flower things.
No, totally.
It's like a
Yeah,
little.
okra can be a challenging one to eat. I only eat it in soups when,
Mhm.
the mucilage, God, what a horrible word, it can be like diluted into the soup, or cut up and roasted. If it's cooked really hot, then it doesn't have that like slime factor to it. And it's actually really good that way. So I don't if you care to ever venture into using it other than for decor, Just my
I think
guess.
I'll try it fried again differently than we did it, and then if I maybe make it like I make Brussels sprouts, which is like cook the heck out of it so that it's crispy. I might I might do that.
There you go.
All right, are you ready to move into our favorite varieties finally?
I feel like this is what all of our other podcasts just slowly derail into. Now we actually get to like dedicate an entire segment to it. I'm excited.
Yeah, we had to talk about this sooner rather than later, or else we were just going to keep bringing it up in all of the podcast episodes.
I have a feeling we might continue to do so anyway, but
We're going to start this off with tomatoes. My 3 favorite tomatoes that I grew this year for very different reasons from each other. I guess actually let me put a disclaimer with this list that we're about to give you. Mine are very much based on how pretty they were and how well they did in this first year garden we have here, which is not ideal. Like the soil and everything, it's not ideal right now. So I can't say that I'm gonna call these my favorites in the future, but for 2023, these were my favorite varieties that I grew. So the first one is the black strawberry tomato from Baker Creek, because it's just the coolest looking tomato that I've ever seen. It's like purple and pink, and like it was just beautiful. They're actually like little cherry tomatoes. It wasn't the most abundant plant. I planted it really late, and it was planted between rows of peppers, so it just didn't have the best chance. But it did give me some, and I did save the seeds from those. So I'm going to try and plant those again next year. The next one would be Cherokee Purple. These ones are my favorite for the year because they produce so well for me. And you're going to see Sage and I disagree on some things in this list. Actually, quite a few, which is really interesting. And I think it's a good note for anyone listening to take everything we say in this list with a grain of salt, because we're about an hour from each other. And this just shows you how different varieties do well in different areas, climates, weather, soil. It's very dependent on a lot of different things and just your taste in general. So some of my favorites are some of Sage's least favorites, and I think that's really funny. So the Cherokee Purple tomato was one of my favorites because it produced better than any other tomato that I grew this year. I can't really speak to the actual flavor of it because I just made sauce out of all my tomatoes. I have a hard time with tomatoes. I don't eat them fresh, really. I just made sauce. So maybe they don't taste the greatest. I don't know. They worked well in my sauce.
right. So I know that those are a native variety from around here, and I heard so much about the Cherokee Purple tomato. Everybody hyped it up so much, and maybe it's just one of those things. It's like when a movie first comes out and you hear amazing things about it and you go see it and it's not bad, but it's also not great, and you're just like really disappointed. That's kind of what happened to me with the Cherokee Purple tomato. Like everyone said you have to try this tomato, and I was like, okay. And when I grew it, it was healthy, it did fine, but just compared to my other more preferred varieties like Brandywine or Black Beauty, it didn't stand up to my other favorites. So like I have another tomato, the Black Beauty, that I grow for that really dark, beautiful purple color. And then I have another tomato that I grow for the really like acidic, awesome sweet flavor from a tomato. And so to me, it just kind of is second place, both areas. It's not bad. It's not great.
No, I had never really heard of it. I wasn't planning on growing it last year, but I killed all of my tomato seedlings, and I had to go to our local nursery and get a bunch, and that's what they had. So that's what I got a ton. And they did really well for me. But again, I don't eat them fresh, so like I can't really speak to their flavor on their own because they're just in sauces. All I can say is that they grew well. And also, I'm growing Black Beauty this year and Cherokee Purple. I did get seeds. I do have seeds for them. I just didn't grow them last year. So I guess I can do a comparison and we'll see.
Well, what's interesting about that too is I grew Black Beauty in Colorado and I decided that I didn't really like it. It wasn't like super anything. And then I grew it here and tasted it and was like, oh my gosh, this tastes so different. It could be the soil, it could be the light, it could be it just wasn't my year for black beauty tomatoes before. But I mean, I've definitely experienced even the same seed packet, um, growing wildly different produce in different gardens. So there you go.
Lots of variables. And then my last tomato is the Tess's Landrace Currant tomato. I'm going to preface that with I hate that tomato for humans because it's tiny and it's a pain in the butt to pick. I would never want to like go pick that every day for myself because they're literally the size of a pea, one singular pea, and they're so frustrating to try and pick. But my ducks, I absolutely love them. So whenever I'd let them free range in the garden, they would come and like nibble on them. So I'm going to grow those this year just for them. I wouldn't grow them for myself, but I will probably grow them in like my cottage garden or something and kind of just let them do their thing and then let the ducks snack on them whenever I let them out.
That makes sense.
Those are my favorite tomatoes.
Mine are San Marzano tomato, which is a paste tomato variety that is famous for being great in sauces, and it is what they use as the tomato sauce for Neapolitan pizza. Like, there's no extra additives, it's just crushed San Marzano tomatoes. They have a very particular flavor, and honestly, it's kind of like wine. It's not really a San Marzano tomato unless it's grown, in its true region. Growing it here is going to make it taste different, but this is the best I can do. I can get that variety and grow it on my land and be the closest to what I'm ever going to be able to attain, right, to that true San Marzano tomato flavor. So it is a little bit different, but I do still absolutely love them. And I didn't get to grow many last year. I think I ended up with like 3 jars of San Marzano tomatoes. So I'm keeping those for some very special occasion for this year. My next favorite variety is, I can never say this without like a little bit of an Italian accent. I do a terrible Italian accent, so I apologize. But it's called Principe Borghese, and it is a tomato that's famous for sun drying. And oh my gosh, so I don't sun dry them, but I do cut them in half and then stick them in my oven on really low, like 200, 250, and that heat caramelizes the sugar that's in that tomato. They taste like candy. If I'm not careful, I will sit there and I will eat almost that entire sheet of tomatoes. So good. And I also appreciate it because I'm able to preserve it in a slightly different form. So yeah, I can have, endless cans of tomatoes, but you get a little tired of pulling the same thing all the time. And so it's a different flavor profile from that different tomato, and it's a different texture because of the preservation method. It's dehydrated instead of canned. And so it makes, even though it's still a tomato, it makes the tomatoes that I'm able to preserve a little more versatile.
Do you keep them just like in a jar, or do you like vacuum seal them or something to like store them?
So it depended on how much energy I had to get them fully dry. So there were a couple batches that I was able to get them like truly dehydrated. I wasn't worried about storing them on the shelf at room temperature. And I still have them, and I've had no issues with them molding or anything like that. If I woke up and I checked the dehydrator and they were still a little bit moist, I was not trying to run the dehydrator during August when it's 95 outside. I didn't also want my house to be 95 because it warms up the house to do that. So if I woke up and the batch that was going overnight was still a little bit moist, they're still like bendable, I just threw them in a plastic bag and put them in the freezer, and they kept that way. So I have both.
I think I've seen recipes before. I've never done this, so I could be like wrong on how it's done. I feel like that would be really, really good if you did an infused oil, like an olive oil infused with those, with basil too. Like a tomato basil infused olive oil sounds so good. I bet that you could still eat them afterwards too, probably.
Yeah, definitely. I would have to do a little more research on what you would have to do to make that shelf stable.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I've looked that up. Yeah, I think I've looked that up at some point and been like, "Oh, there's this extra step. I don't wanna do that." But yeah, to have that tomato infused olive oil or tomato basil infused olive oil
Hmm.
would be
That sounds so good.
so good.
I might have to try that this year. Even if I have to freeze it in like ice cubes to like make sauce out of or something.
Mhm.
I don't know. That sounds good.
And then my last of my favorite tomato varieties is the yellow brandy wine. So the others that I mentioned were not slicing varieties, but this one is. This is what I prefer to grab if I'm gonna slice up a tomato and put something on a sandwich or just have a tomato. Um, this is what I go to, and it's specifically the yellow brandy wine. There are multiple colors that you can grow, but I really appreciate high acid foods for some reason. They just always taste really good to me. This is an acidic tomato, but it's also sweet. It's a unique flavor profile for a slicing tomato. It doesn't taste like the tomatoes that you get at the grocery store and cut up unless you get like a really, really good heirloom tomato. And so I will always have that in my garden. I do notice that that one tends to fall victim to blight and other issues more so than the other tomatoes, but I don't care. I will grow that for the flavor. I know, Mickayla, your varieties are mostly for aesthetics. Mine are absolutely primarily motivated by flavor. 100%.
Yeah, I noticed our brandy wines. I grew pink and black brandy wines this year, and the pink ones were beautiful, like such a pretty color. They were heavily, heavily covered in bugs more than like anything else. The the bugs really, really liked the leaf-footed bugs specifically, really liked the brandywine tomatoes in general.
Did you have any tomatoes this year that made it on your not so favorites list, your least favorites?
All of my paste tomatoes did horribly, and they're not probably going to stay on my least favorites list. I'm hoping for next year because I really like my primary goal for growing tomatoes is to make sauce and value added products like that. So I would love to have more paste tomatoes, but all of mine, the Romas that I got from the nursery, and then Gil Gilberti, I don't know how to say it, Federally, and a couple other kinds that I grew, just did so badly. They got maybe 2-3 feet tall max. They never took off and they didn't really produce very much. Like I got some here and there, but compared to the slicers, not even comparable as far as like what's my favorite for the year because they just did not do well. I don't know why.
Does that put you off of trying a seed packet of Roma tomatoes, or does that put you off of buying Roma tomatoes from that same nursery again?
Well, some of them were ones that I started from seed, and some of them were from the nursery, and they all did
Ah.
horribly. Honestly, that's why I'm trying some hybrid tomatoes this year. I want to see if that makes a difference, and I would love to get space tomatoes. So, like, if I'm gonna grow them, if I'm gonna put space in my garden for them, I like, and the hybrids do well, I will grow those, and then I will just do my slicer tomatoes too because those are so big and pretty and they're all heirlooms and I can still grow those and then also grow like a couple hybrid varieties of the paste tomatoes if that's what I have to do. But I am going to still try and do some of the heirloom paste tomatoes just because I have the space and I want to do a comparison. So again, I'm all about experimenting.
My Romas also didn't do great this year, but I attributed that to me starting my tomatoes later in 2023 than I really should have. I thought it would be fine and it was not fine. So mine were also short, but that's kind of on me. And so I'm going to, I think, swap out my Roma tomatoes for Amish paste because I know a lot of people really like that variety. So I'm just gonna try that for a year and then see which one I like better.
I'm not committing to calling paste tomatoes my least favorite forever just for last year.
Yeah, that makes sense. The other tomato that landed on my not so favorites list, other than the Cherokee Purple, was the Paul Robeson. That one is another one that I had heard a lot of great things about. I got really hyped up, and then I tried it and was like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand why this is so lauded as this crazy tomato. So I was kind of disappointed that I bought a whole seed packet that I will never use now.
That's one that I've heard of, and like I've heard it talked about on probably YouTube. I don't know who specifically, but I've definitely heard that name before. Never tried it though.
You can skip it.
All right, let's move on to peppers. So, my two most favorite varieties that I grew this year are two varieties I've never grown before. And the number one is Cubanelles. They are a sweet pepper, but they're not a bell pepper, which is something that my brain never really wrapped itself around before. Like, I didn't realize that there were other sweet peppers that weren't bell peppers because that's how limited my palate is as far as like experience with that kind of stuff growing up and whatnot.
Your
Um,
palate or the grocery store? Because, I mean, I can't think of
I
anything
mean,
that the grocery store sells that would be a
my
sweet
palate,
pepper, but not hot.
my palate because of the grocery store. I will say that.
Ah, there we go.
Just because of what my family cooked growing up, I had never like had that realization. So, Cubanelles are one of the best tasting peppers I have ever grown. They were one of my favorite things in the garden overall this year, and we were definitely growing a lot more of them next year. I only grow like one or two plants this year, and I'm sad. But I've had them sliced and diced up in my freezer, and I'm almost out. I think I have one bag left. I'm so sad about it. And then the other one is Nata Pino, which is a mild jalapeno because I'm a big baby when it comes to spice. And so I felt like that they had like a really, really good jalapeno flavor. And they were really, really big peppers because obviously they're crossed with something at some point that made them not spicy. I don't know what they're crossed with, or what they were bred with to be that way, but they're massive. So they're perfect for poppers, and that's what we made a lot of this year. We did accidentally mix them with our jalapenos, though, because they look the same. And so, like, we had a bunch of different varieties of jalapenos, and some were small, some were big. So when I was making poppers, I didn't know which ones were which. And now we have Russian roulette jalapeno poppers.
My favorite peppers, I have 3 of them. 2 of them are just general seasoning peppers that I really appreciate that I've grown pretty much every year that I've had an intentional food garden. And as long as I can find the seeds for them, I'll continue to grow them. So there's Corbaci and Jimmy Nardello. They're very, very similar. They're thin-walled, sweet seasoning peppers. They're not big enough. I mean, you probably could stuff Jimmy Nardello pepper, but Corbaci is super thin, super long. And so basically, I cut those up and I dehydrate them and then I throw them in mostly tomato sauces. So some Marzano, tomato, some Corbaci and Jimmy Nardello pepper with onion, garlic, wine, Parmesan rind. You'll never
That
make a
sounds
better
so good.
sauce. Oh my goodness. That stuff is so good. Um,
We're going Jimmy Nardello this year too, because I've heard other people say a lot of good things about that. So I'm excited to try it.
yeah, and I mean, they do kind of the same thing. They end up in the same dishes, but I like having just a little bit more complexity from a couple different seasoning varieties. And
Mhm.
so even though they're almost the same thing, I'll probably always grow both of them. And then if one doesn't do well, then I still have the other. And then the other pepper that I have on my list is shishito. That is also another thin-walled pepper. It's not like a bell pepper. And these can also be sort of Russian roulette. Every 1 in 10 or so, I think, is supposed to be spicy. I've never bitten into one and said, oh no. But it does happen. And I like to, I will also dehydrate these just in general to have like a green pepper flavor to throw in stuff. But they are so good tempura fried. Oh my gosh. So delicious. There's been more than one occasion that has been my dinner in the summer. Make tempura fried shishito peppers and then mix together like a spicy aioli with homemade mayo and gochujang.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you put tempura on anything and I'm devouring it in general, but I love shishitos. That should have been on my list too because that was another one of our favorites. We just blistered them with salt and a little bit of pepper, I think, but so good. I never bit into a spicy one. The first one Taylor tried was a spicy one, which he likes spice. So he's like, "Man, these are spicy. I can't believe you're eating them." I'm like, "They're spicy?" And now I'm scared to eat them.
Yeah,
Uh,
one day I'm gonna bite into one and regret my life decisions, but until then.
then you just eat another one to like mild it out a little,
There you
level it
go.
out. All right, next let's talk about squash. I only have one thing listed here, and it's kind of encompassing a lot of them. So, just in general, I really, really like scallop and 8-ball or round squash varieties for summer squash. Particularly in my garden this last year, they grew better and faster than any of the other kinds that I grew, like the elongated zucchini and summer squash, which means the bugs, like I could actually harvest them at a decent size before the bugs got to them. So there's a lot of colors and varieties. I think I'm growing yellow, light green, dark green, white, and more of like a yellowy orange one, like a stripy one this year. And then the round, that's scallop, and then the round ones, I'm growing like an 8-ball zucchini is what it's called. So
I definitely noticed that my scallop squash, particularly the white one, because it's a native variety, did significantly better against all of the squash pests. I have vine borers, I have squash bugs, I have squash beetles, I have all the things, and they all love the
mhm.
squash. So that white scallop squash will always be in my garden. I don't necessarily love that flavor more than others, but it is nice to have a hardy squash plant.
Yeah, no, it's a matter of like what I actually get to harvest. I can't be picky with the flavor because the bugs were so bad.
Gosh, I hope that's better for you this second season. I know it was I had a very similar experience my first season, so I hope it gets a little better.
Me too.
I also like a round squash variety. There's one called Ron Denise, which is technically a zucchini, and I normally do not like zucchini. I usually just don't eat it because I don't care for it. But this variety I even like more than my summer yellow squashes, which I'm from Georgia. That's saying a lot. Like that's a go-to food for me, cooked squash. So highly recommend that one. And it also is a quick producer. I think it's 30 days if I remember correctly, which is so fast for a squash. It's by far the fastest in my collection.
It's basically a radish as far as timing goes.
Yeah, kind of.
That's awesome.
And then the other variety that I have on my list is a winter squash. It's honey nut. So it's basically a small version of butternut squash. Butternut squash itself is also more pest resistant when it comes to the vine borers. And so honey nut is not as resistant, but it still carries a little bit of that. But yeah, it's bred to be a little bit smaller. The flavor's concentrated, and it tastes so good. I think I'm gonna try to grow like a whole bunch of them this year.
That's again, we didn't harvest any winter squash because the bugs were so bad. I have honey nut squash that I was growing, and I wanted to try it so bad. Like I hope it grows better this year because I love butternut squash. It's one of my favorite things on the planet. Like I could eat butternut squash every day of my life and not get sick of it. Just like straight up, like put a little butter on it and some salt. I will devour it. After it's cooked, obviously. One of the seeds that somebody locally sent us was a butternut squash seed, and they started out and lasted so much longer than any of the other squash seeds that I planted because they're adapted, which is really cool.
On my not so favorites list, I do have a cucumber, so I'm gonna bring that up because it's close enough to squash. But a muncher cucumber, when I tried to plant that and get that to grow, especially next to my other cucumber varieties, it was just kind of pitiful and it like tried and then it just gave up on life. And so I just don't even try to grow that one in my garden anymore. I grew it a little bit in Colorado in a totally different garden and it did okay. It still wasn't great there either. But back when that was the only thing I had, it was better than nothing. But now that I have other varieties that I prefer, I don't reach for that seed packet anymore.
Okay, so I have a favorite and a least favorite cucumber on here. My favorite, my favorite cucumber is also the Muncher. That did better than anything else for me as far as cucumbers go. I think I had like 5 varieties that I tried, and some of them were pickling. I did the Munchers, and then I did like a really random one that I'll tell you because that one was my least favorite. But the Muncher is the only one that did really well, and I was consistently harvesting from it. Those are like they're salad cucumbers basically. So like you can pick them larger or smaller. And so I prefer those ones on salads because they're really crunchy. But I also use them as pickles, and they were still crunchy as pickles in my jars like that I've recently opened. So I'm glad that they're kind of dual purpose. But again, that just shows you like how different gardens can be, because like they did great in my garden. So I don't know. And then my least favorite one is called Punakira, I think that's how you say it, but I'm not 100% sure. That one I never got to really harvest much because the bugs just were all over it and the plants were unhealthy. And honestly, like when I did harvest a couple, they were really sour. And I don't think it's because of the time of year that I grew them in. I think they're just like a different kind of cucumber. They're like yellowish brown and fuzzy, and I didn't love it. So won't be growing those again.
I do actually have a second cucumber on here that I didn't see before. But the cucamelons, they're like this big. They look like tiny little watermelons, and they're prolific. Like they grow okay. I just didn't know what to do with them. Like I had so many, but also not enough to like reasonably set aside an entire jar to preserve because they're so tiny. So I ended up just throwing them to the chickens and like being done with it, and then was wishing that I had used that space in my garden to grow something else instead. So I mean, they're healthy, they're great, but also I just don't eat them. So it's kind of like what's the point?
Yeah, I have never grown them and I've always wanted to, but I've never known what I would do with them. So that's why I haven't got the seeds. I think that we have so much space in our garden, like I could theoretically grow them just to feed to the birds. I do grow things just for my birds because I enjoy giving them treats. So maybe in the future I will, but it's not on like a must-haves list for me as far as food for me. So the next thing is beans, and this is going to be another disagreement that we have. One of my favorite beans that I grew this year, and I grew a lot of different kinds. None of them, again, did super well because of the bugs. But the dragon tongue bush beans dominated all of the other kinds, and they tasted so good, and they were really pretty. So I really like that I could save the seeds and like use them as dry beans, but we mostly ate them fresh. And I do have some packages of them down in the freezer, but we didn't really save very many green beans this year because we just ate so many of these fresh. The other one, this isn't really a bean, I guess. I don't really know. It's edamame. So I would say no particular variety, but just in case you're curious, last year I grew, I think it's called Tankiro. And they did really, really well. It's one of the best things we have in the freezer. We snack on that all the time, and I'm growing more of it this year. They're great little appetizers. And then they were really easy to grow. They had almost no bugs on them until the second time I tried to grow them, like towards the end. They got some Japanese beetles on them. Other than that, though, huge harvest. I barely had to do anything with them, and they grew. I planted them and they grew. And then this year I'm growing a different variety, and they're I'm so bad at pronouncing things. Shirofumi, I don't know. I'm growing a lot of them.
I also grew dragon tongue bush beans in my garden, and it's not that I didn't like them, it's not that they struggled, it's just that I have other varieties that I care for more. So I have Kalima and Kantare, and those will always be my go-tos. They are so tender, they are so prolific. I don't need another green bean variety. And I tried a few extras last year just to sort of make sure that I was really zeroing in on what I want, and I'm sure I would just rather dedicate that space to more of my favorites.
That makes sense. I tried Kantare and they did horribly for me.
Oh no.
All right, so then I have a few more random ones, and these are all, there's not like multiple of these, so I'm just gonna kind of go through them. Cosmic purple carrot. I'm not saying there's any amazing qualities about this other than they're pretty, but they were the only ones that really grew well in our horrible clay soil. So it's like solid clay. You could make like a mug out of it. And I knew that the carrots weren't going to do well, but I just wanted to try it. And those were the ones that grew. So they only got like baby carrot size, maybe a little bit bigger. The other ones just didn't do great. We did have some lunar white carrots that grew too, but those turned out really stringy and tough, and I didn't really like the flavor of them. I mean, I'll probably grow them again because I have them, but I want to try doing them in raised beds this year. Keep saying next year.
I am afraid to grow white carrots because I'm convinced that it's gonna be poison hemlock, and then I'm gonna accidentally poison myself. So I just made a rule that I don't grow white carrots, and
That's fair.
then I can be sure.
They gave me parsnip vibes because they were like more tough and stringy, so I didn't love it. But again, that could just be my soil.
I have not had great luck with carrots where I am. Back in Colorado, I grew them accidentally really well. I absolutely love the Kyoto red carrot. It's so soft. It's kind of weird. The texture of it is so good that you're like, "What?" And it's just a really unique flavor. I really enjoy it, but I haven't had it in the last couple years because I haven't been able to grow it. I think I just try to baby them too much, and I think that I've been planting them not quite at the right time. It's always a little too early or a little too late. Fairly confident that I'll be able to grow carrots in 2024, but we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
I do have to say though that I've tried the cosmic purple and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. It was so tough. The flavor was just not great. And I grew it in a collection of, like 4 or 5 other carrot varieties and got to that one. And I was like, I don't even want to save this. I kind of just want to like compost it.
See, ours had great flavor, but they were only like this big, 3 or 4 inches long. So they were like baby carrots. Maybe they were just good because they were little.
Yeah, you could have harvested them at a better time too. I mean, who knows?
Again, lots of factors here. Okay, and then the next random thing that I've got is walking onions, Egyptian walking onions. I got them off Etsy, and oh my goodness, they are impossible to kill, which is amazing for me because I forget about things a lot when I have too much going on. I just like put them in the ground. Actually, I put them in a pot, forgot about them for most of the summer, and then towards the end of the summer, I put them in my hugelkultur bed, and they're just like doing their thing out there. They're amazing green onions. Like they're never ending green onions. They grow forever. Like they're still growing out there. And we just got down to like 14 degrees last night. I'm excited to like get those growing more and transplant some of them once we get our fruit trees set up in the orchard and like get guilds going. I think that they'll do well down there because they self-seed, I guess, everywhere because they just like tip over and plant themselves again. So then you just always have green onions, and I love green onions more than regular onions. I would definitely get those again. Loofah is kind of intense, I would say, as far as like how much space it takes up. But I'm going to plant it at the front of my big trellis this year because it completely covered the trellis, and I just love how lush it looks. I don't need any more loofahs. I grew enough for like 10 years worth of loofahs for us this year. But the plant is just so pretty, and I love how it fills out the trellis. So I'm gonna put that on there, and then I'll either sell them or give them away if I don't need them. The only downside about that is they kind of smell like burnt popcorn, and they don't smell great. Like the leaves, if you rub against them, you're like, why does it smell like a movie theater, but like after they burnt the popcorn?
I've
Not good.
heard I've heard so many people say that loofahs smell terrible. I don't get it. I mean, I don't think they smell great, but it just smells like a plant to me.
I mean,
I don't
it's
know.
not like, I wouldn't say it's like horrible or anything. It's just a weird smell. Like they definitely smell. They have it's a smelly smell.
It's a smelly smell that smells smelly.
Yeah. Peanuts. We grew peanuts this year, and I think those are also going to go really well down in a fruit tree guild situation because they kind of just like, they'll spread and they'll fix nitrogen, and they love our clay soil. They do really well down here in the South, and you don't have to baby them or anything. So another thing I can ignore and harvest if I want to. They're fun snacks. And then the last one is, I don't know how to say this one again. It's Hido or Heju. I don't know how to say it. It's bok choy. It's like tiny bok choy, baby bok choy, but smaller. So you don't really have to cut it up before you put it in ramen or pho or stir fry to make it easy to eat. And it grows really fast and it's just really cute. So that's why I like it, but it tastes yummy.
How fast does it grow if the goal is to harvest it that tiny anyway? I mean, it seems like that would grow really fast.
It's really fast. It's about radish length, so about a month. Honestly, it's hard to start it inside. Because, like, a lot of bok choy, I'll start inside and then put it out, but it's hard to start it inside because it grows so quickly. By the time you're putting it outside, it's, like, almost ready to harvest.
I do have an herb on my list, and that is specifically Genovese basil. So I love basil, but typically with most varieties, I really struggle with this almost licoricey taste that I don't enjoy. And Genovese basil does not have that for me. And so I make everything out of that. I do grow a couple other basil varieties for ornamental purposes, but Genovese is the only one that I grow for food. And I will probably always grow only that one for food. I can't imagine really liking any other basil variety better.
I love Genovese basil. I grow other kinds for tea, but as far as like seasoning and stuff, like actual herb uses in cooking, I like that kind specifically. My favorite herb that we grow is cilantro. I am obsessed with cilantro. I will literally go out there and just like eat it. I love that it grows when it's cold. We still have cilantro in our garden right now that I've been picking and using in meals. And again, it's gotten really, really cold. So I like that it grows in the off season as well. I wish it grew better in the summer because I like to use it in salsa. Do you have any flowers that you have favorites of? I know you grow a lot of flowers.
My favorite flowers list is significant. I was able to whittle it down to several. There's a few on this list, but I'll go through them. Poppies. I really like to grow poppies because they flower before a lot of other things are really hitting their stride. And so it's encouraging to have them around in your spring garden just because it's satisfying. And also the honeybees absolutely love them. They're always covered in all sorts of pollinators. And so I like having them around for more than one reason. They're also a very unique flower and just very pretty in their own right. Really no downsides for poppy. Really.
Do you stratify them?
I do. Yeah, I just keep them in instead of having cheese in my cheese drawer in my fridge, I have Ziploc bags of multiple kinds of seeds. That's what you get when you open my cheese drawer.
I haven't ever grown poppies because I always forget to stratify them, and I'm like, well, I don't want to waste the seeds, so I'll just wait till next year. And then I always forget.
Yeah.
One of my favorite flowers, a lot of mine are kind of more basic varieties of things, just because I don't know, I haven't gotten super deep into the flower world yet, but calendula I really like because, again, that's something that grows when it's cold. It's still growing in my garden. It's not flowering, but it's healthy. It's medicinal. It's really, really good to use for eczema, and I have eczema really badly. I love how bright they are. The bright orange is just, it's like neon, and I love that.
When you use it for medicinal purposes, how do you use it? Do you just soak it in oil, or what do you do?
I've used it, I haven't done it in a couple years, but the first year that I grew them, I put them in like an infusion. So it's like I think you do it for like a month where you just like fill the jar up with that and some kind of oil. I can't remember what oil I used. And then you put it in the sunshine, which is different because I feel like most of the time with infusions, you want to like put them in a dark spot, but it like turns the oil orange and it infuses it really well. And then you strain it so that the flowers aren't in there anymore. And then you just use it in like body products. But I honestly just rub the oil right on my skin because my eczema in Michigan was severe. Like it wouldn't go away for months, patches of it.
Gosh, I'm sorry. I don't do well when people talk about being hurt or anything. I just immediately am like, no, I want to help it. I don't. Okay.
I have very
Sorry.
sensitive skin.
That's my own thing. The next one on my list is Lysianthus, which was new to me last year, and I didn't really know what to expect. And a lot of people say that they like them because they look like a rose, and I totally agree. And it's kind of funny because I don't like roses really, but I really, really do like Lysianthus. They're slightly different. They're similar, different enough, but they're surprisingly hardy. Like I was walking in my garden the other day, and they're not supposed to live. They're not supposed to be very cold tolerant, but I can tell that the plants that were in the garden from last year are still alive. Like they're trying to come back from the root, and that's something that I wasn't expecting. So they're apparently even a lot hardier than I thought they were, but they just add a certain, I don't know, a certain element to a bouquet that just they look fancy, they're cool, they have a vase life of like 3 weeks, which is absurd. They're cool all around.
That's one of the ones you influenced me to buy, so I'm going to be growing some of those too. Which
Sunflowers and
fun.
Lysianthus. I gotcha.
I like roses, but only if they're like fluffed out. Like when you like pull them apart. I don't like them like the standard ones you get usually in like bouquets. I just don't think they're that pretty. Which they smell good, but
I don't know what my deal is with roses. It might just be one of those things where it's a classic, typical thing, and I'm like, no, I can't be normal.
they're kind of
I
boring,
don't know what my
honestly.
deal is.
I'm just not like they're associated with like fancy things, and I just feel like they're boring. If you fluff them out, I think they're really pretty. My next one is Double Dutch Rose Cosmos. I like them for no other reason than they're like super whimsy and super whimsical, and they're the most beautiful color. Like they're like purpley blue periwinkle, and I just really love them. Those will be in my garden every year.
Cosmos do have a certain like whimsical, wild, I don't know, like fun cottagey flair to them. I get what you mean.
They're like all the leaves are all frilly, and you never know how tall the plants are going to get. Sometimes they're like 6.5 feet tall, and sometimes they're like 3 feet tall. So you never know, and they're just all over the place, and I love them.
No, those are cool flowers. Another one is foxglove, which was also new to me last year, and that one can be challenging because some of them don't bloom until their second year, which I found out when I grew through 3 varieties and only one bloomed. I'm pretty sure that I selected the ones that said they would bloom first year, and then I'm pretty sure that that information got changed when I looked back at it again at the website. But the one that did bloom was beautiful. It's really tall, and then it's full of a bunch of smaller, more trumpet-shaped flowers. It's just a totally different texture than something you would typically see, like in a lot of bouquets, especially at farmers markets. It's sunflowers and zinnias and like just the very typical like center single row petals flowers, and foxglove is totally different than that, and I appreciate it for that, but they do take a lot of space and they do take a lot of time. So
I've never grown them up until this point, but I do think they're beautiful. But you gave me one, so now I'm going to have one in my cottage garden.
I did, and they're perennial and it'll stay there and come back every year hopefully.
Yeah, so it can take up as much room as it wants in there because I'm not touching it. Dahlias from seed, we already kind of talked about those. They're free tubers because you grow them from seed and they make their own tubers. You can dig them up and use like replant the tubers every year. They're not necessarily going to be as pretty as the tubers you buy from online stores, but I had a lot of really, really pretty, they were like sunset colors. They're like pink and orange and yellow. And I just found them to be so pretty. So I really like the surprise aspect of those, and I'm gonna grow those every year just for the surprise. And I think that the dahlia, like the seeds you can get from them, I don't think they ever grow true. So I think they'll always be a surprise, and that's just like if you can't afford the expensive dahlia tubers online, it's still fun to grow them because I did have some that were double. They weren't single petals.
The only dahlias that I've ever grown from seed were small mignon single row dahlias, because I know that for a lot of them, if they are the bigger flowers, they sometimes don't bloom the first year. But I have never delved into the world of dahlia seedlings. I tried to save some seeds this year, and then they didn't dry out totally, and the seeds got moldy and they got ruined. I mean, part of the reason is because I have very specific varieties that I want to grow, and then part of it is they don't stabilize for the first few years. So like, even if you save the tuber from a seedling, it can be one thing one year and then it can be totally different the next. And so I don't know. I can't
That's
handle
why
that level of heartbreak.
I'm so intrigued by them because a lot of the seeds that I grew this year, they were very similar. The flowers on them, they were just like different collages of the colors, but they were very similar flowers. So I'm really curious to see if the tubers that I saved do well. I'm curious to see what the flowers look like from them, like if they're the same or if they're a little bit different or what. But I just like the surprise.
Yeah, hopefully one day I mean, I would love to start like a dahlia seedling program of my own and like do some cool flower thing, but I need a lot more free time before I delve into
Yeah.
that. Dahlias are also on my list of favorite flowers, but I mean, like we just talked about, I mostly grow them from tubers, and two varieties that are specifically my favorite are the Cafe au lait, which is like arguably the most famous dahlia. It's that light pink, kind of mauvey, peachy, creamy, just beautiful, and it's huge. It's a dinner plate dahlia, so it's a larger variety, and it's called that because it's like approximately the size of dinner plate, which is absurd.
Mhm.
But that one's always gorgeous. And then my one of my other favorites is called Arabian Night. It's a smaller dahlia, so instead of being the size of a dinner plate, it's, I don't know, the size of a baseball, and it's really dark. It's a really beautiful dark maroon color, and those contrasts when they're planted next to each other or in the same bouquet are so beautiful. I'm also just a sucker for a dark maroon color in pretty much anything.
I grew the dinner plate dahlia, or one of them I grew, and it was just like a plain white one, and they were like massive, but they were so pretty. I hope that those tubers do well. And if they don't, once I get like my beds established a little bit better for those, I will order more because I really loved those. And the other ones that I grew were the smaller ones too, but they were like purple and then like a peachy one that I really liked. I love
It
dahlias.
sounds like it sounds like that might be Florel, and if that's the case, that is like the hardiest of all of my dahlias. Like I
Good.
could toss it in the corner at the end of fall and forget about it and neglect it and do everything wrong with it, and that tuber would survive. So
I'd like to look up what it is, but I'm not gonna take the effort to do that right now. We'll just go with that. Cracker Jack marigolds. I know that's like a super basic flower, but they brightened up my garden so much, and I actually think that they did help with some bugs this year, even though we did have a lot. Marigolds are used only for companion planting, but the Cracker Jack ones were literally like the calendula I mentioned, they're like neon orange, and the flowers were like they were like this big, a little smaller than a baseball. Like massive marigold flowers. I feel like most marigolds are tiny. So I'm gonna grow a lot more of those this year. And some of them were like bright orange, some were bright yellow, some were like a mixture of the two.
I've always heard that for the pest prevention properties that you should do the, what is it called, French marigolds. But do you
I
feel
have a
like
mix.
those worked as companion plants too?
I had them all kind of mixed together.
Ah.
So I'm gonna keep doing that because I like how the Cracker Jack ones look better.
Hmm.
But I don't know necessarily which one worked better or if there was a difference. I just like the like how the Cracker Jack ones look a lot better. I'm thinking of like a specific moment every single night where you're like in the garden and the sun's setting, the sky's getting really dark, and they're glowing. They look like they're actually illuminated. That's how bright they are.
On my list is amaranth, and there's a few different kinds of amaranth, but the one that I'm talking about is not the upright amaranth. It's the one that sort of, is weeping. It does the waterfall thing. I
Mhm.
think those are so beautiful. And again, it's kind of a texture thing for me. A lot of these are really interesting textures, or just different flowers, things that draw the eye elsewhere in a bouquet and are not just the typical center and then petals for flowers. But it's also edible. Like, that's a food source that people grow. I don't care to eat it. I think it's bitter. I don't really like the taste of it. But they are very pretty. And I will keep them in my garden.
This is probably like the most basic of flowers to mention, but the giant California zinnias, I cannot recommend those enough because they're so easy. You can forget about them, you can mess them up, and they're still going to grow and they're going to be beautiful and large, and they're easy to save seed from.
Did you grow multiple varieties of zinnia and that was your favorite of the zinnias, or is that what survived best in your garden, or that's the only variety that you grew?
I grew a bunch of random ones. I honestly don't remember the names of the other ones. That one was the one where I like got a huge packet of it and I just spread them everywhere. I just tossed them all over a huge planting area and they all did really, really well. And they were all like, it's a mix. So they're pink, orange, yellow, white. It's just it was the easiest thing I planted. And I thought they all got washed away because as soon as we planted them, we got a huge rainstorm and all the dirt just like left and they didn't come up. But then I mulched that bed to plant something else there and then they all came up. So
There you go. Echinacea is another one on my list, and that's also partially medicinal, but they're native. They naturalize so well here. They're absolutely beautiful. The native pollinators love them. And once you get them established, they come back year after year. They do typically come in that like purple coneflower color, but I have made a point to try to find some seeds that have a variety of colors, and I'm hoping that I can get them established sort of on the side of my yard right next to all my other flower beds, and that area can be like very low maintenance. It comes back year after year. I don't have to continually replant it. But those are also amazing cut flowers. They're so pretty in a bouquet. I don't know what my deal is with echinacea, but every time I see it, it just makes me happy.
I grew some of those when we lived with our friend in Detroit at his house, and he sends me pictures of them in the summer because they didn't flower the first year, and I can't wait to get more of them established in our cottage garden area because I think they're so pretty. I only have one more. I don't know how many more you have, but I have one more. So this is kind of another fancy, picky flower, but it was worth it, and I am definitely going to get more of them in future years. I'm not getting more this year, but next year and the year after and probably the year after when I have more beds established, we're getting more. And that is ranunculus. So I ordered like the corms. I don't know if you can get seeds. I've never looked. They're kind of picky. They mold really easily and you have to like soak them for a certain amount of time and then let them try and like pop up partially covered. It's a weird setup. Most of mine, I think I only had one mold out of like 30 of them, so that was pretty good. But the flowers, I think that might be my favorite flower. And I may have said that for multiple other flowers and I regret none of it. I don't take any of it back. They're all my favorite. But ranunculus might be my favorite. The reason behind that is kind of like a personal story. I'll tell that at some point. I'm not going to right now because I want to go to bed.
Fair. Yeah, ranunculus are fun, but they are hard to grow. I'm gonna try them this year, but also I'm like not holding my breath. We'll see. I only have two more, and those are chocolate cosmos and anemones. So chocolate cosmos are not necessarily the same as like the cosmos that you were talking about earlier, where it can be like a 6-foot hedge and it's crazy and wild. They are a little bit smaller, and they like warmer weather. I think they're originally from Mexico or something. They can be really hard to find because usually the seeds aren't viable. They smell like chocolate. They're really tiny. They're this really dark flower. I mean, they're probably like, I don't know, the size of a quarter, if that, when they bloom. But they add such cool like detail. And I really appreciate them for that. And I'm me, so I'm like, it's difficult, yes.
Are you saving seeds from them? Or are you trying to, even though they're not like potentially gonna work?
That's a good question. I think since I got genetics that the seeds are viable, at least to some extent, I think I would be able to save the seed and even if, 75% of them aren't viable, maybe 25% are, even though that's normally a terrible rate. But I tried to grow some last year, and I just had too many seedlings to keep up with, and they kind of got put on the wayside, and I didn't transplant them out. Anyway, I got more seeds this year. I'm going to try to pay attention to them and get them taken care of, especially now that I have more garden space. So we'll see. And then the last one on my list is anemones, which is not grown from a seed. It's grown from something called a corm. I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of
It looks like a
pointy
squid.
and it's tight. I don't know. kind of like a really tiny pyramid, a claw that fell off of an animal. I don't know. They're weird, but I do like them. They're another flower that grows in the earlier season when maybe not a whole lot else is able to come up. And that's something that in previous years when I've ordered it, I've gotten the wrong color accidentally. So I ordered several this year, and hopefully they're the right color. I think the white ones with the dark centers are absolutely beautiful.
The corms, I just looked them up. They kind of look like shriveled up ginger.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
All right, so that was a lot to go through, and it took a while. I thought this was going to be a quicker episode because we had like a list, but it was not because we were
Very
talking
wrong.
about seeds. But, that's how this goes. Let us know below what your favorite and least favorite varieties are that you've grown, and if you have any favorite seed shopping spots that we didn't mention, we'd love to know about them.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of She Said Homestead. We hope you enjoyed our chat. Before we say goodbye, we'd love to hear from you. Send your homesteading stories to us at shesaidhomestead@gmail.com. We can't wait to share them on the air. To stay connected, follow us on Instagram for updates and sneak peeks at what's coming up next.
If you like video podcasts, make sure you subscribe to the She Said Homestead YouTube channel too. We can't thank you enough for being part of the She Said Homestead community. Until next time, happy homesteading.